These two watercolors represent a particular stereotypical image or picture of the landscape of Indonesia as being peaceful, idyllic, and even romanticized. These form part of a bigger album titled Mui Indi, and it's translated into English as Beautiful Indies. Now this is significant because it gives us an entry point into the broader Dutch colonization of Indonesia. It was very important for the Dutch to create such images and to circulate them as a form of justification for their colonial rule. And it makes invisible a lot of the exploitation of labor as well as the extraction of resources by the colonizers.
With that in mind, maybe we can look at the next set of images. There are two very, very different approaches to landscape here. Maybe you can talk us through it.
Well, for Soejourno's Stand Guard for Our Motherland, it's a social realist painting depicting the Indonesia War of Revolution against the Dutch as they were fighting for their independence from 1945 to 1949.
Something that really stands out to me is how in Soejourno's picture, people are really at the forefront.
We see a group of figures. They are not professional soldiers because they are not wearing military uniform. Of particular significance is the man with a hat, and he is actually offering a cigarette to the man on the right in the painting. Now, this is an act of solidarity and brotherhood. And this is particularly important in allowing us to understand where Soejourno was coming from in his criticism of the Mui Indi paintings. Soejourno coined the term jiwa ketuk, or visible soul, and he compared the artist to a seismograph, whereby the hand of the artist is connected to the brush, and from there is connected to the heart. And what is the heart? Well, the heart is really the motherland. It is the gunung, it is the mountain. And this is really powerful in how Soejourno was conceiving and redefining the role of the artist as a form of resistance against the kind of stereotypical, romanticized and peaceful images of Indonesian landscape.
It's clear from what you shared, how Soejourno actually transformed the genre of landscape painting into a really potent site for self-determination and the expression of nationalism as well. And really this idea of landscape continued to persist in Southeast Asia in very powerful ways. So if you look at the next set of images, we see here some examples from Singapore.
We see a picturesque, idyllic, one would say romanticized images of kampong villages in Singapore. What is perhaps interesting in, for example, Muhammad Salahuddin's depiction of the Malay kampong is how the kampong itself wasn't just necessarily romanticized, it was actually a home. It was a place where people interacted with one another. And I think what the artists like Richard Walker and Muhammad Salahuddin were trying to do is to depict not just the Malay kampong, but also a sense of solidarity and community within the kampong village itself.
There's a real sense of, I think, nostalgia that I see here. Even looking at Lim Cheng Ho's paintings during a time when many of the kampongs in Singapore were already starting to disappear, which kind of leads us to the image that we see here on the right, which shows a very industrial scene instead.
Yes, here we see Chua Minati's painting titled Benjamin Sheares Bridge. And it was really a period of developmentalism in Singapore with the rapid urbanization. And of course, in relation to the Malay kampongs, it was a period whereby many people who were living in kampongs were being relocated into government housing. So this was a process of transformation in our societies that was also reflected in our urban landscape. And in the background, we see a skyline of Singapore, and its verticality implies the idea of progress.
I think something also that strikes me about this work is the format. It's in kind of a panoramic format, and it's also very large in scale.
The scale itself is really critical because he juxtaposes the massive monumental size of the Benjamin Sheares Bridge with the minuscule human figures that you can barely see on the bridge itself.
Why do you think the landscape has been such an enduring subject for artists across time?
Well, I think landscape as a genre is really about representation. And earlier, we were talking about colonial representation, whereby idyllic, peaceful images of landscapes were produced and circulated. And this is important because artists have been finding different ways in which they relate to landscape. And one of the ways in which I think landscape is still important today is the question of the centrality of the human figure. But that has also gradually changed, in which the artists engage directly with their environment and also with the changing social and political realities that they live in.